On today's show, the streak lives on. Donovan Mitchell has a great fourth quarter as the Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Chicago Bulls and move to 14-0. We're going to talk about all of it next, right here on today's Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my new Substack, The Inside Shot, 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed. Show is also available on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs on YouTube. If you're watching this right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Also need to let you know that Locked On Cavs now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter, your one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Cavs newsletter. The Cavs move to 14-0 after a 144-126 win over the Chicago Bulls on Friday night at home. It was the Cavs' first NBA Cup victory, so they start off 1-0 there. This team just does not lose. This team does everything they need to do to find ways to win. Some nights they're closer than others. Tonight was offense. The Cavs, I thought, played, for the most part, a spectacular offensive game. The first quarter they played on Friday night, they scored 49 points. They did not miss a two-point basket. I think they went 19 of 22 from the floor in the first quarter. It was one of the most impressive displays of basketball I have seen on the offensive end. And I feel like I've said that about this Cavs team a few times this year. When they're really clicking on all cylinders, when they're really humming on that end of the floor, they are impossible to stop. And I think that's what we saw early. Donovan Mitchell had it going on early. Darius Garland had it going on early. I thought Jarrett was fantastic. I'll talk more about him coming up in a little bit later on today's show. But when the Cavs have everything working the way they did, particularly in the first quarter against the Chicago Bulls, I don't know what the best thing to do to stop them is. I don't know that there's really good answers for opposing defenses. This might be a team that when they lose, it might just because they get outscored. Like that might be what this team is. But Donovan Mitchell had the best night of anybody for the Cavs on offense. I thought finished with 37 points. He was really big early. I thought he did a good job of setting the tone for the Cavs, coming off of a few games where, if we're being honest with ourselves, the Cavs have obviously won every game they've played, but the last few games they've won, but I didn't think that they had played their best basketball. And I don't know that I can say they played their best basketball on Friday night because the defense wasn't where it probably needs to be, but offensively, they played really, really well. Like they had an offensive rating in the 130s for this game. And Donovan was really, really good again after what I think was probably a slower start to the season than we're used to from Donovan. He's really turned it on these last few games. You think about that fourth quarter, really his overall performance against Philadelphia on Wednesday night, where he had 13 points in the fourth quarter, finished with 23, but also had 13 rebounds, 9 assists. And then on Friday night to go out, score 37 points, had 7 rebounds, which I do think is a bigger deal. And it's not something that we're going to talk about a ton because of the scoring outburst. But on a night when Evan Mobley wasn't available because of an illness and the Cavs had to play smaller for decent chunks of this game, Donovan having 7 rebounds is a really big deal. Just like it's a really big deal that George Niang had 8 rebounds. I'm going to talk about his contributions coming up a little bit later in the show too. But for Donovan to go out and score 37 points and also to have an awesome fourth quarter too. That is the other thing that I do want to spend some time talking about, because the most dangerous thing about the Cavs, and this was the thing that I asked around about after the game, is they've got multiple guys on this team that can really serve as closers. Now, some of the role players like Ty Jerome and Karis LeVert have had nice fourth quarters, but what's important here is they've got two guys that are capable, two guys specifically. Maybe we'll get to three with Evan Mobley. I don't know. I don't think we're there yet. But they have two guys specifically in Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell that are capable of taking over games in the fourth quarter. We have now seen both of those guys do that on multiple occurrences this year. Donovan had 18 points in the fourth quarter on 6 of 9 shooting, 3 of 4 from deep. He was awesome in that period. And I know that the Cavs won by 18. I think that this was a closer game than the final score. It was weird to see them run the score up, which they had to do because it's an NBA Cup game and point differential does matter. And I will talk about that coming up in segment number 3 today. But they needed to play until the final buzzer, and they did. So that's why they won by 18. But the Cavs, this game was in doubt. Like, there were points in the fourth quarter where it was within 5 points, and they needed to really execute on the offensive end and on the defensive end too. And they did make big plays there. But Donovan was awesome offensively. The first quarter, I thought he was fantastic. I thought in the fourth quarter, he was terrific as well. That is superstar stuff. And we've seen superstar stuff from both him and Darius Garland. And I think my favorite thing, or the best thing that we can look at from this game on Friday night, not how good Donovan was in the fourth quarter and in the first quarter. I don't even think it's an individual thing, but I think it's how well that Garland and Mitchell are playing together, because these two both had great games. Donovan had 37, Darius had 29, and he also had 9 assists. And in the past, when these two have made it work, and I think I've always been a little bit higher than consensus on them as a pairing in terms of their fit. But when they've made it work, it's at times, not all the time, but at times, it's felt a little bit your turn, my turn-ish. It hasn't been the most cohesive thing. It's not been beautiful basketball. I think that it's been a little too pick and roll heavy, a little too pick and roll reliance, if we're being honest. And I don't get that sense where you watch Darius have a really good night, you watch Donovan have a really good night. Those things could happen at the same point in the past, but it almost seemed more coincidental, where now I think it feels as if both those guys having good nights on the same night, it doesn't feel like it's some coincidence. It feels like because all of the success that the Cavs are having on offense is coming within the flow of the game. And I really like the shot distribution from both of them. Darius was super efficient tonight. He had 29 points on 18 shots, 4 of 7 from 3. Donovan took 13 threes, which I think is, we might be getting to the point where maybe that's a few too many. But when he makes 7 of them, when he's shooting the 40% that he's shooting on the year, you're going to take that. Maybe you would like to see Darius take 1 or 2 more, but he's been so good at getting to the basket this year. And yeah, he took a couple of mid-rangers. I know he made a couple of mid-range shots on Friday night. So you will live with that. But overall, the way that these two are playing off of each other, I think is one of the most encouraging things that we've seen from the Cavs offensively so far this year. And of course, it's early in the season. And I think that's another thing that should be really encouraging. The fact that it's so early in the season and it already looks this good. The Cavs are not peaking right now. The Cavs are playing excellent basketball, obviously. They're 14-0. But I also don't think the product that we're watching on the floor right now with the Cleveland Cavaliers is the best that they're going to be. I don't think anyone in the locker room thinks that. I don't think this coaching staff thinks that. I don't think if you're watching this team, you're sitting there thinking, you know what? This is as good as it's going to get. This might be the most fun you have as a Cavs fan all year because they've won 14 games in a row to start off the season, and they're not going to be able to do that again. They're not going to have another 14-game winning streak to start the season. That's not possible. And it's really cool that they are the story in the NBA right now. But I do think because of how they're winning that they will get better. They're not a finished product on either end of the floor because I do think that their defense has slipped a little bit. But when this team really starts to gel and really starts to click on all cylinders, which that day will come, they're going to be a very, very dangerous team. And part of the reason why I don't think that they're anywhere near their potential, this is a team that isn't practicing right now because they've played so many games. This was their 14th game in 24 days to open up the season. I think the last time they had like a real full practice was the day in between the Toronto and Detroit games. That was the second day of the season. So it's been a long time since they've had something other than a shoot around. Like Friday morning, they had an optional shoot around, partially because this team has played so much basketball in such a short period of time, partially because Evan Mobley missed with an illness. There is something going around the NBA. Evan was not the only guy out on Friday night across the league with an illness. So that's something to think about too. But this is a team that, for as good as they are right now, and as great as they're playing offensively, I don't think they're anywhere near their ceiling. And yes, the winning is exciting and all of that. But I think that should really be one of the most encouraging things, because you're watching the Cavs go out there and dominate games. Donovan Mitchell's awesome. Darius Garland, awesome. Jarrett Allen tonight, awesome. But I don't think they're at their peak yet. And I don't think they're going to be at their peak for quite a while. There were some other good things, obviously, that I want to talk about from Friday night's win. Jarrett Allen stepping up in Evan Mobley's absence was one of them. And an unlikely starter also made a big impact. We're going to talk a little bit about George Niang next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's episode of Locked On Cavs is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25 APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. That's robinhood.com/gold. Terms do apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Also, if you're watching on YouTube right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I thought Jarrett Allen had a really good game on Friday night for the Cavs against the Bulls, and I thought it was really important that he had a very good game against the Bulls. No Evan Mobley, who missed with an illness. He was questionable on Wednesday night against the Sixers. Was a little surprised seeing him play through that on Wednesday. I thought you could see it in that game. I thought he looked like somebody who wasn't at full strength. He was originally listed at probable on Friday morning before the game, and then after shoot around, he was downgraded from probable to questionable, and I think that was a pretty good sign he wasn't going to play. Obviously, he didn't. But I thought it was really important for Jarrett Allen to have a good game, because if you look at the last few games, I don't think Jarrett Allen has been at his best. I think, and Kenny has alluded to, he might be a little bit burnt out early on. He's been playing a lot of minutes. He's near the leaders in terms of minutes played for the Cavs this season. But on Friday night, he looked like the all-star version of Jarrett Allen. He looked really, really good again. And without Evan Mobley on the floor, that was really important for the Cavs. He provided them a big boost. He had 24 points. He had 10 rebounds, 2 block shots, 3 steals. He was really, really good on a night when they needed him. And I know defensively, Chicago is a little bit of a tough matchup right now, especially when they're hitting threes at the rate they were hitting threes, where they hit 47%. And I want to talk about that in a second too. But they're a tough guard defensively because they play so overwhelmingly fast, where not only are they the fastest team in the NBA by pace, there's like a kind of significant gap between them at number 1, and I believe Washington is number 2 in that. I haven't looked at the updated numbers after Friday night, but I believe Washington is 2. And there's a significant gap there, at least at last check. So they're a tough team to defend, especially because they want to attack so quickly. But I thought Jarrett Allen offensively is where the Cavs were going to need him. And I thought he was really, really good. I thought he was spectacular on that end of the floor. Now, he wasn't perfect, but without having Evan Mobley out there, that was a really big contribution for the Cavs. So no Mobley meant that the starting lineup had to change. George Niang was put in the starting lineup, and I thought this was a very interesting move by Cavs head coach Kenny Atkinson going with Niang, because when Mobley was ruled out, I think a lot of people had the assumption that Dean Wade would get the start. And of course, that would make sense. Dean Wade is the backup big guy. He's, a very natural fit at the 4. That is his natural position. He's a good fit next to Jarrett Allen. But I did think it was smart that Kenny went with George Niang, because George Niang is a backup 4, but he's also not somebody that you really ever want playing the 5. Dean Wade, however, is he the ideal 5? No, but he is suitable there. He's somebody that if you need emergency break glass in case of emergency minutes at the 5, Dean Wade can do that. And he's done that on a few occasions so far this year. So that's why Dean Wade didn't start in this game, because Kenny wanted to use him as the backup center instead of starting him and using him as the backup center. Because if you look at the box score, it makes sense George Niang started, but it also makes sense that Dean Wade played more minutes than George Niang. That said, I thought George was really good. This might have been the best game that George has played this year for the Cavs. Offensively, he was awesome, shot the ball really well, made 4 threes, had 8 rebounds too, which is something that's really important, because when the Cavs sacrifice a little bit of size, playing Dean Wade would have been playing a little bit bigger in the starting lineup. It's important that somebody picks up the slack in the rebounding category. Donovan did it because he had 8 rebounds, but George Niang did it too with 8 rebounds. George also, the third quarter he had was really, really good. Had 11 points in that third quarter. When the Cavs had another bad second quarter, they were outscored by 11 in the second quarter. I think it was 39-28 after having just an awesome first quarter. They played almost, I don't want to say equally as bad as they were good in the first quarter, because I don't think it was that extreme, but they did not play up to their standard in the second quarter. And there's no doubt about that. So to come out of the locker room and have a really good third quarter because a role player was able to prop you up, Donovan only had 2 points in the third quarter. Darius only had 5. It's not like those guys were really driving the bus coming out of the locker room. It was because George Niang hit 3 threes. That is something that was really important. And, I know because it's an 18-point victory, you don't necessarily think of that thing, but you also have to remember how the game ended. If George Niang doesn't have the third quarter George Niang had, I don't know that the Cavs win this game. And I'm not going to say that they definitely don't, because I have no way of knowing that. But I think that the contributions he made were very important. Now, the one thing that worried me about this game and has worried me about the Cavs play as of late is what's going on from beyond the 3-point arc when they're on defense. So Chicago shot 47% from 3 on Friday night. They made 23s. That has been a trend against the Cavs lately, where teams will, in the last few games, it hasn't necessarily kept up. I know Philly hit a ton of threes, but they only shot 33% because they took so many. But rewind 2 weeks to that first game against Milwaukee. Remember, they had a back-to-back. They played Friday against Orlando, then they played Saturday in Milwaukee, and then they played the Bucks on Monday. So rewind back to that. Beginning with that game against Milwaukee on Saturday in Milwaukee, the one Donovan Mitchell hit the buzzer beater on. Cavs opponents are shooting over 40% from beyond the 3-point arc. It's the second worst mark in the NBA. The only team that has a worse mark in that time period are the Utah Jazz, who might be the NBA's worst team right now. I don't know if this is bad luck. I don't know if this is they're not defending beyond the arc well enough. I don't know if it's because they're exhausted. I don't know what the answer is, But I do think it's something that is at the very least worth noting, because that is an area where if a team gets enough of them up, and Chicago really in the fourth quarter sort of slowed down their pace because they were shooting a ton of threes. And then it felt like they got to the fourth quarter and those looks just went away, where they only took 7 3-pointers in the fourth quarter. And before that, they were up around 30. They were averaging 10 a quarter. And that was a big issue for them. That is how they were able to stay in that game, because they took so many threes early on and connected on enough of them. And then in the fourth quarter, their shot diet changed. And part of that could be because of what the Cavs did. Could be. Maybe there was a change. I don't know if there was. If there was, I'm not aware of it as of right now. I'll have to go back and watch. But it's just something to keep an eye on, because that could be a potential flaw in this defense. And if that's the case, I do think there's reason to be concerned. It also could be bad luck. I don't know. It could be bad luck. And you think about, okay, well, AJ Green hit 7 threes when the Bucks played the Cavs, and Jose Alvarado hit 7 threes when the Pelicans hit the Cavs, played the Cavs. And though you don't expect those type of outlier performance, Damian Lillard hit 10 threes in that first Bucks Cavs games. So that has definitely contributed to it. But is it because of poor defense, or is it just guys have had great nights? I don't know the answer to it, but it is something that I think is worth looking into. And it's something I do plan on looking into in the very near future. So Friday night was the first night of the NBA Cup for the Cavs. Yes, they're 1-0, which means they're in a great spot. But a little bit deeper than that, I think they're in an even better spot. And I'll tell you why next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook. I've been telling you that for a while now. Why have I been telling you that? Because that is the truth. The NBA Cup is underway, and I've talked about how I like the Cavs. I really do. As of right now on FanDuel, the Cavs have the second best odds to be hoisting the NBA Cup in Las Vegas a month from now. The only team with better odds are the New York Knicks at plus 550. Why do the Knicks have better odds, you might ask? Well, it's because the Knicks have played 2 group play games, and they are 2-0, while the Cavs have only played 1, and they're 1-0. So if Cleveland goes into Boston on Tuesday night, their next NBA Cup game, and wins, you bet the Cavs are going to be the favorites to win the NBA Cup. You can get that on FanDuel. You can get so much more on FanDuel. They've got everything you need: NBA, NHL, NFL, with more regular season action this weekend. FanDuel has it all. And you know what they also have right now for new customers? You can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's right. If you place a $5 bet, that thing wins. Maybe you want to put $5 on the Cavs to beat the Charlotte Hornets on Sunday and get this winning streak to 15. If they do, and you're a new customer, you get $150 in bonus bets back if you win. So visit FanDuel.com today to join. That's FanDuel.com today. And like I said, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com. Never waste a punch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can check out the show anywhere you get your podcasts. And please be a friend, tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. If you're watching on YouTube right now, do me a favor, hit that like button, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. NBA Cup, Cavs 1-0. I think they're in a great spot aside from the fact that they're 1-0. So in their group, it's them, the Bulls, Atlanta, Boston, and Washington. They don't have to worry about the Bulls anymore. Boston has lost a game to Atlanta. That doesn't mean the game on Tuesday night has any less significance. If anything, I think Tuesday night's game in Boston really serves as a chance for the Cavs to clinch their way into at least the quarterfinals. I do believe that. If they find a way to win in Boston, that will be a very big deal. Atlanta took care of Boston. That was obviously a very big win for them. It was a game that I think shook up the NBA Cup landscape. I don't think a lot of people expected to see that. I know I certainly did not expect to see that. The Cavs will be playing Atlanta right after Thanksgiving. I believe it's the day after Thanksgiving. The Hawks are 2-0 in the group. They beat Washington by 12 on Friday night. So they're going to be a threat. Like that game after Thanksgiving could be a really big deal. That could be the game that decides who wins the East Group C, which is the group that the Cavs are in. But the Cavs have put themselves in a good spot, not only because they're 1-0, but you also have to look at this. Okay, say they drop a game and they finish 3-1 and they're in, they could potentially be a wild card. Well, the tiebreakers will matter there. The tiebreakers, point differential, well, head-to-head is the first. So if there's two teams that finish 3-1 within a group, head-to-head will matter there. But if head-to-head does not matter, point differential matters. The Cavs are plus 18 after one game. So you saw them run up the score on the Bulls, which you would never see in a regular season game. Like if they played the Bulls on Sunday or they play the Hornets on Sunday, if they're up by 7 with 30 seconds left and the Hornets are not going to foul, the Cavs are going to just take the shot clock violation and then the Hornets will dribble out the clock and we all go about our business. But because it's an NBA Cup game, the Cavs are up by 13 with 18 seconds left and Karis LeVert is on a fast break for a dunk or Donovan Mitchell pulls up from 3. It's because they need to juice up that point differential. They need to win by as many as they can. The second tiebreaker, which I don't know is as well known because no one expects it to get to that point, but you do have to be prepared that you could. The second tiebreaker is points scored. Well, the Cavs scored 144 points. And look at who they play the rest of their group. Boston will be a challenge. I would be very, very surprised if they score 144 points in that game. That's just not something I expect. If they go in and really take care of business in Boston and put up that type of offensive output, I'd be very, very surprised. But the rest of their group, Atlanta is 25th in defensive rating. Washington is dead last in defensive rating. The Cavs, even if they don't sweep, say somehow they lose to Washington, which I would not expect to happen in an NBA Cup game. That's still a game where they should score 130 plus points, which is wild to think about because the Cavs scored on Friday night 130 points or more for the 6th time this season. The franchise record for most 130-point games in a year was 5. The Cavs broke that record on November 15th. That is ridiculous. And I think that is the stat that says everything about just how great this offense has looked under Kenny Atkinson, how dominant Donovan Mitchell was on Friday night, how dominant this backcourt of he and Garland has been all season long. This Cavs team is a championship contender, and I'm not just talking about the NBA Cup championship. This is a team that is capable of winning the finals because this offense has a chance, and it's early, and they're not going to shoot like this all season long. But this offense has a chance to be the best offense in NBA history. By the numbers, it has a chance to be the best offense the NBA has ever seen. We'll see what that looks like. The Cavs play again on Sunday. I will be back after that game. I'm going to not have a podcast come out Sunday morning. I have podcasted, I believe, every day for the last 2 weeks. So I'm going to take a day off from podcasting, but I will be back with you after the Cavs take on the Hornets. Maybe I'll be talking about the Cavs winning 15 in a row and continuing to set a new franchise record for the longest winning streak. We'll see what happens. I will talk to you then. Like I said earlier, thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and really every day. I have had such a blast doing this show. I still have never done a show after a Cavs loss, which is spectacular, obviously. But the response has been terrific. I appreciate you guys listening to Locked On Cavs every day, making it your first listen. I truly, truly do. So you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast. If you're a first-time listener, make sure you're subscribed because I'm going to have Cavs content coming your way just about every single day. Every day during the week and most times every day on the weekend too. So make sure you're subscribed if you want more Cavs content. Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Give me a 5-star rating. Say some nice words in a review. Be a friend. tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. If you're watching on YouTube too, I appreciate you. Appreciate everyone that does stream on YouTube. I met someone at the game last night that says they watch the YouTube channel every day. I appreciate him. I appreciate everyone that does. So if you're watching, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Also want to let you guys know, over on my Substack, The Inside Shot, I am running a sale. So if you're looking for more written content on the Cavs have won 14 straight, it's 14% off. If they win Sunday, it'll go up to 15% off. So if you're looking for more Locked On Cavs content, that link, or Cavs written content, I should say, that link will be in the bio. So be sure to check that out. But again, thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. I will see you again after the Cavs take on the Charlotte Hornets and look to get to 15 in a row.